I don't know what to do about these new Latin American countries. Should I sign the treaty with England so that they can assist us in protecting new nations? Or should I issue my own doctrine that stops European countries from interacting with the Americas?
Our country was founded on basic liberties and rights of men. These basic ideals form our country's democracy. They should be spread and protected in our neighboring Latin American nations. By issuing the Monroe Doctrine, we will protect these countries from all European influence and control that could poison their foundation of freedom. This policy will take a strong stance against European meddling in the Americas, promote the spread of democracy, and will stop us from having to comply with British wants.
Having recently declared independence from Great Britain, America is in a dangerous position to make the right choices early on. In doing so, building a sturdy base for the ever-shifting pillars of democracy that we pride ourselves upon. Among important decisions is repealing this Monroe Doctrine. This wise decision would give us elements to help a new country grow efficiently. An alliance with Britain and other European powers would prove helpful with America's new, unexperienced military. The alliance has little to no risk, as the British are already trying to keep Europe out of Latin America, which would benefit us. And lastly, Latin America fears the Monroe Doctrine is only going to benefit us, despite the neutral gains promised by the policy, which will upset our geologically close neighbors, thus giving us a bad name.
The Monroe Doctrine will be the surest way of stopping European meddling in new American nations. Britain has refused to recognize many of these nations so far, and would surely try to take over or influence them, as they have done to numerous other areas such as India and parts of Africa, if we sign a treaty with them. Furthermore, Great Britain is tied to the Quintuple Alliance, along with Russia and France, two nations who are continuing to colonize the Americas. If we ally with the British, what would stop them from letting these countries influence and further colonize the Americas? All people in the Americas deserve the liberties we have granted ourselves. We must issue the Monroe Doctrine to protect them from European conquest.
As we start to pave our own path, there is a lot on our plate in terms of establishing a new country. To put it simply, all people living in America are busy, whether a government member establishing rules and policies, or a farmer harvesting crop, and everything in between. America, compared to other countries, is quite behind in terms of economy and government. A proper military is not a concern that is worth time in most Americans' eyes, even though it should be. The Americas are a shiny new toy that numerous countries want to play with. A proper military will be needed to show and establish borders that will be respected. With the possibility of a Britain-American alliance, a well-trained military and navy would be under the belt of our budding country. This would allow focus on other aspects that need attention at the time.
The Monroe Doctrine will further benefit us by promoting the spread of democracy. Nations in South America, such as Colombia and Brazil, are democratic, but are liable to harm from European powers due to their weakened state as newly formed nations. By issuing the Monroe Doctrine, the United States will be able to better assist and defend these nations from European powers and keep them democratic. Conversely, if we were to sign the treaty Great Britain has proposed to us, we would not be able to block out dictators or monarchs from being put in power. Great Britain would work to put in a monarchy similar to their own, and the U.S. power in the Americas will not be absolute. This is why the Monroe Doctrine is crucial to keeping Latin American nations democratic and free.
If America would pass the Monroe Doctrine, isolationism would likely occur between America and the outside world. This could be dangerous as information would be late to come about foreign affairs. Following this late and possibly unreliable information would be decisions about making things like expansion and government action would involve a high risk. Something that would not involve risk would be an alliance with Britain and other European countries. The British Navy is determined to keep other countries in Europe out of Latin America. This would greatly benefit us if Latin America was kept separate and could not build up power with the help of another country. This similar objective between America and Britain would strengthen the alliance that could be made without the Monroe Doctrine.
However, with the Monroe Doctrine, we will not have to comply with British wants. The treaty proposed by the British would stop the United States from further expansion. This would be a huge issue for our nation, as more land will be needed to support a growing population, and much land is still open for the United States to claim. By issuing the Monroe Doctrine instead of complying with the new treaty with the British, we will be able to further grow our nation.
To keep a good name of ourselves, we need to have an appeal that other countries can respect. The Monroe Doctrine, in perspective of Latin America, is threatening their land and rights. They believe the policy is merely foundation for U.S. economic and territorial expansion. This threatening feeling that Latin Americans possess is due to the Monroe Doctrine, which can and will prove to be dangerous. In the event that Latin America comes to have a larger amount of power than America, they will rightfully so threaten us, just as we have indirectly threatened them. In order to keep a good name for ourselves now and in the near future, our best option is to repeal this policy.
The Monroe Doctrine is needed to help the United States and other American nations prosper. This policy will take a strong stance against European meddling in the Americas, promote the spread of democracy, and will stop us from having to comply with British wants. We as the United States must always look to protect our freedoms and those of other nations, especially those that are vulnerable like our Latin American neighbors.
To conclude, the Monroe Doctrine is in more cases bad than it is good. Nullification of the policy would allow a much-needed alliance with Britain. Information of foreign affairs would be accurate and no risk would be involved in retrieving the information. And finally, other countries, including those in Latin America, will not feel threatened. With these actions in place after the Monroe Doctrine is revoked, America will truly be on path for peace and prosperity.